Here we go. We're talking about the pumpkin project, and this is an example of one that a teacher made. He will tell you he made it in, if he had just focused and just did this, it would only taken like 15 minutes. It was obviously a really quick one. It has a few requirements. You have to have the equations in the same color as the little items. So like if your eyebrows are red, then it needs to have a red equation for that. And you have to do different things in different colors so that we can tell them apart easy. Next thing is you can have no more than 20 of these 20 equations. Now, if you just really need like the 21st thing because you can't take anything out, you got to have one more equation to make this thing look right, then I'll give you like 21 if you ask me ahead of time, or 22. But I don't want you going over 20 otherwise, unless you get special permission. Why? Because some kids would go just bananas on it, and it really wouldn't be fair. They'd set such a high bar of like, man, you could make this incredible thing, but it would take hours and hours and hours, and we don't want somebody to, like, make the bar be that high for creativity. To some extent, isn't it kind of a challenge to write an essay in 5 sentences that's a good little summary? Yeah, it's kind of a challenge to keep it to 5 sentences. Well, same idea in math. We're going to limit it to 20 equations. All right, then other things you have to have. I'm going to show the rubric real quick. If you go to Schoology, your Schoology page has the rubric listed right there. Open that. And if you wanted a perfect project, you just have to make me circle this for yours. You had at least twice for each function, and the circle has to be used, the absolute value has to be used, that's the V shape, squared has to be used, so there has to be a parabola, and the square root has to be used. And notice it says there are fewer than 20 on the graph, and again, if you get special permission, you can go over 20. Okay, questions so far? Yes? Can you say that to me one more time? What? Where are you on the rubric here? Are you on the rubric? Okay. All right, I'll get back to you. In this one, you'd have to have excellent creativity. There aren't going to be many people who nail the creativity and get full, 4 points out of 4 points on the creativity. Okay, because I have to look at it and go, whoa, cool! I haven't ever seen that before. That's kind of cool. Not just that it's bizarre and I've never seen it before, but a good idea I'd never seen before. That would be like a 4. So most people should be thinking in terms of, if you do pretty good, you could get a 2 or a 3, because this is average creativity and this is above average. If you're just going to do a pumpkin and keep it really simple, it's probably going to be a 2. A 1 would be really pretty shoddy. So I probably won't give out too many 1s, but I'd probably give out a lot of 2s. All right, the equations. Your equations basically have to be right. So if your equations are all correct and you get domain and range for each of them, then you'll get 8 points for that. And the last thing is, it has to be neat and clean. If the lines are all like squiggly, you can erase it really easy and do it again. I mean, you got plenty of time to make this look really neat and clean. All right, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so neatness. I guess the bottom line is, if I look at it and it does not look neat, then yes, you're going to lose points for neatness. Now, could there be some things that just can't be neat because of the way they are? Then yeah, I'll take that into account. But if you've got the time, you've got several days you're doing this, so I expect them to be good. All right, so there's the basics of it. Now, in my class, you don't have to do a pumpkin. You can do a dinosaur eating a pumpkin. You can do, that was some kids last hour. You could do a witch flying on a broomstick with a moon in the background. You could do, there's a lot of different things you could do. It doesn't have to even have a pumpkin involved at all. It just has to be, we're kind of going with the theme. of a pumpkin project. But again, I don't want to limit your creativity that way, because I frankly will get really sick of looking at pumpkins. So if you've got something else, maybe a cat, typical black cat in Halloween is kind of a typical, idea. It's not like I've never seen a cat before. There's a lot of cats, but just a lot of cool ways you can make a cat that are different than other people's ways. I saw some people, I don't want to give away their idea because maybe you'll think of it by yourself, but added an extra dimension to their cat that made it much cooler than just a normal cat. So anyway, stretch yourself. Try to make this really cool because you have several days to work on it. And here's the other thing. You get the benefit of working with a group. So you are not going to be assigned you have to work with so-and-so. But I am going to set these parameters. Generally speaking, I want groups of 3. But if you have a foursome that really wants to be together, that's okay. Any higher than 4, though, I am going to make the group break into smaller groups. It's a good question. Does each group make 1? Yes, but you all make your own on your own screen. But like you would all do the same picture if you're in the group with that person. But there's good sides and bad sides to that. Like if you want to be in a group with somebody and you really want to do a cat and they really want to do a horse, okay, then I guess I'm still okay with you being in a group with them. You just are going to be able to ask them questions about how do you do this domain thing, and like you can have them as a resource to work with you. Okay? Even if you're saying to yourself, Mr. Server, I'd really like to just work alone because I got this cool idea and I don't want to have to try to convince somebody else to do this idea. You can work alone, but I want you to work alone with somebody. As in 2 people that both want to do their own thing can sit together and work with each other. That way they've got each other as a resource for like, how do you do this? How do you do that? How did you get that cool equation to work? That kind of stuff. I want those conversations to happen. So nobody should be sitting in here working alone. You can be working on your own things, but with somebody sitting near you, okay? But I also would be fine with 4 people. I had some guys doing that last hour that worked really well. They were all like sharing like ideas with each other, and they just made one picture, and then they're all just going to make that picture once they're done with it. They're all going to make their own version of that picture. Okay, so if you want to kind of save time and divide and conquer, maybe one person's going to do all the domains, maybe one person's going to do all the ranges, another person's going to do all the creativity, like here's the picture, how the picture should look, or however you want to divide it up. All right, a group of 2 is fine. All right, so I'm going to give you some time to find somebody, but before we do that, last questions about can I do this, can I do that, what's it have to look like? All right, this isn't the final discussion. I'll tell you more about this later, but yes. Do you have to use those parent functions? Yes, you have to use the ones that are listed in the graph to get your full points. You'd have to have 2 of each, of the square root and the squared and all of those. Okay? You have to have 2 circles at least. It can be 3, it can be 4. The hard part, I think, is to try to keep it to 20 and still make it interesting. Something that, try to make it something some people haven't seen before. Yes? All right, the minimum equations that you can have would be 2 of each function, which I believe there are 5 functions, which I think would make it 10. All right, so when you're all done, look at the rubric and see. You can actually grade your own and say, did I answer everything on the sheet? Did I do everything he asked me to? And you'll know whether you're getting a good grade or not. All right, so start with some brainstorming. Find a friend that you want to maybe work with. And ask me more questions later.